My name is Scarlett. I am 32 years old and I live in a city apartment. The drive took 6 hours. My arms ached from the weight of the car seat, and my 9-month-old daughter was finally asleep. I stood on the front porch of my childhood home, surrounded by snow, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. I just wanted a normal Christmas. My mother opened the door. She didn't smile. She didn't open her arms to hug me. She just blocked the entrance, looking down at my sleeping baby with a look of pure annoyance. "Why did you come?" she asked. Her voice was flat. I blinked, the cold air stinging my face. "It's Christmas, Mom." "Your baby makes people uncomfortable," she said, as if she was just talking about the weather. Behind her, I saw my father sitting in his armchair. He caught my eye, smirked, and looked back at the TV. My sister walked past the hallway and didn't even turn her head to acknowledge me. I stood there, holding my daughter tight against the freezing wind. The warmth I had hoped for didn't exist. In that moment, the truth hit me harder than the cold. I wasn't family to them. I was just an inconvenience. I was never actually welcome here. But before the twist, like, subscribe and comment where you're watching from, I stood in the hallway, the cold draft from the door still clinging to the legs of my jeans. My mother had turned her back on me and walked into the kitchen without offering to take my coat. My father was staring at the television as if the football game contained the secrets of the universe. My sister Jenny was scrolling on her phone on the sofa, her thumb moving in a rhythmic, dismissive swipe. No one moved to help me with the bags. No one moved to look at my daughter, Lily, who was blinking her eyes open in the heavy car seat I gripped with a shaking hand. I looked at the back of my father's head. His hair was thinning, but it was dyed a rich, dark brown. I remembered paying for that treatment. I remembered the day he called me, casually mentioning that his image was suffering at the country club and he couldn't afford the salon prices. I had transferred $300 into his account within 10 minutes. He never said thank you. He just sent a text later that said, "Looks good." I shifted my weight, the strap of the diaper bag digging into my shoulder. I looked at the walls of the house. The paint was fresh. It was a creamy, expensive white, just like my mother wanted. I paid for the painters last summer because she said the old yellow color gave her migraines. She had called me in tears, saying she couldn't live in a depressing house anymore. I paid the invoice directly to the contractor. It was $2,000. I looked at the floor beneath my boots. The hardwood was polished and gleaming. I paid for that refinishing 2 years ago when Jenny dragged a metal table across it and scratched it deep. My mother had screamed that the floor was ruined. Jenny had cried that she had no money. So, I stepped in. I always stepped in. For years, this has been my role. I am not the daughter. I am not the confidant. I am the wallet. I am the bank. I am the safety net that catches them before they ever have to feel the hard ground of reality. It started slowly, so slowly that I didn't even notice I was being trapped. I remember the first time clearly. I was 22 years old. I had just landed my first real job out of college as a junior analyst. I was making a decent salary for the first time in my life. I was proud. I felt like an adult. My dad called me on a Tuesday evening. His voice was low, shaky. He told me he had forgotten to pay the electric bill for 3 months. He said the power company was coming the next morning to shut off the lights. He said he was embarrassed. He said he didn't want Mom to find out. "Can you help me, Scarlett?" he had asked. Just this once. I felt a surge of responsibility. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted to prove I was capable. "Of course, Dad," I said. I paid the bill. It was $250. I felt a glow of pride when he thanked me. I thought it made me a partner in the family. I thought it earned me respect. But it didn't stop at the electric bill. 2 months later, it was the groceries. Mom called me, sounding frantic. She said the fridge was empty. She said, "Scarlett, your sister needs protein for her track team, and we just had a bad month with the business." I sent $500. Then it was the car repairs. Then the insurance premiums. Then the unexpected tax bills. The requests became a routine. They were never asked directly. They were always presented as crises. "The roof is leaking and mold will kill us." "The car broke down and your father can't get to work." "Jenny needs this specialized laptop for her design course or she'll fail." I remember the mortgage crisis the most vividly. It was 5 years ago. I was saving for my own apartment. I had been eating cheap noodles and skipping vacations to build my savings. My dad called me late at night. He was crying. I had never heard my father cry before. It terrified me. "We're going to lose the house," he sobbed. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. Business is dead. I don't know what to do, Scarlett. We'll be on the street. My heart broke for him. I couldn't imagine my parents homeless. I couldn't imagine my childhood home with a foreclosure sign on the lawn. How much? I asked. 12,000, he whispered. I looked at my savings account. I had $13,000. It was everything I had. It was my freedom money. I didn't hesitate. I transferred $12,000 the next morning. They kept the house. They didn't lose a single piece of furniture. I felt like I had saved them. I waited for the change in our relationship. I waited for them to treat me like the savior I was. But the next week, I saw photos on Facebook. They were at a winery on the coast. They were staying in a nice hotel. They were eating steak. I called my mother, my hands shaking. Mom, how can you afford a trip if you were about to lose the house last week? She snapped at me. Her voice was sharp, defensive. We need to decompress, Scarlett. You don't understand the stress we've been under. Your father almost had a heart attack from worry. Don't be petty. I let it go. I always let it go. I convinced myself that I was the strong one. I told myself that they were just bad with money and I was good at it, so it was my duty to help. It was the price of admission to this family. Over the last decade, I have paid for Jenny's entire existence. I paid for her college tuition because she couldn't handle the stress of student loans. My parents said loans would crush her creativity. So I paid. I paid for her car insurance because she had 3 speeding tickets and the premium was too high for my parents to cover. I paid for her dental work when she wanted veneers because she was insecure about her smile. I kept a spreadsheet once, about 3 years ago. I wanted to see where my money was going. I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and my bank statements. I started adding up the transfers, the bill payments, the gifts, the emergency loans that were never repaid. I stopped when the number crossed $100,000. I closed the laptop and cried. I wasn't crying because of the money. I was crying because I realized I was buying their love. And the worst part was, it wasn't even working. If I missed a payment, or if I said, I can't right now, the silence would be immediate and punishing. They would ignore my calls for weeks. They would forget to invite me to family birthdays. They would make passive-aggressive comments on social media about ungrateful children. But as soon as the check cleared, the phone would ring again. They wouldn't say, I love you. They would say, did the money go through? Or, thanks, we got it. I looked at Jenny on the couch now. She was 26 years old. She had a degree I paid for. She drove a car I insured. She didn't have a job. She lived here rent-free in a room that I probably paid to heat. She was the free spirit. She was the creative one. I was the rigid one. I was the workaholic. I was the one who worked 60 hours a week, missing out on my own life just so they could live comfortably. And now, standing here with my own child, the dynamic had shifted. I felt it in the air. For the last 9 months, since Lily was born, my payments had slowed down. I had to pay for a nursery. I had to buy diapers. I had to start a college fund for my daughter. I had told my parents no twice in the last month. I saw the resentment in their eyes. They didn't look at me and see a daughter who was a new mother. They didn't see a woman who was tired and recovering and needing support. They saw a broken ATM. They saw a resource that was drying up. My daughter, sleeping innocently in her carrier, was not a grandchild to them. She was a threat. She was a competitor. Every dollar I spent on her formula was a dollar I wasn't spending on their lifestyle. Every hour I spent caring for her was an hour I wasn't spending solving their problems. I tightened my grip on the handle of the car seat. My knuckles turned white. I had bought this house for them, essentially. I had bought the car in the driveway. I had bought the food in the fridge. I had bought the clothes on their backs. And yet, I was standing in the doorway like a stranger. I realized then that my money hadn't bought me anything real. It hadn't bought me respect. It hadn't bought me loyalty. It hadn't even bought me a simple hello on Christmas Day. The realization made me feel sick. It was a hollow, aching feeling in my chest. I had been investing in a black hole for 10 years. I looked at my mother again. She was opening the oven, checking on the roast beef. The smell of rosemary and garlic wafted out. It was a smell I paid for. Take your shoes off, Scarlett, she called out, not looking at me. I don't want slush on the floor I paid to fix. I will, I said softly. I bent down to unzip my boots. My hands were trembling. I felt a sudden, fierce protectiveness over my wallet, and more importantly, over my daughter. I had been willing to sacrifice my own comfort for them. I had been willing to drive an old car so they could drive a new one. I had been willing to live in a small apartment so they could keep this big house. But I wasn't willing to sacrifice Lily. They treated my money like a family resource, like a community pot that they were entitled to dip into whenever they wanted. They treated me like the steward of that pot, the manager whose only job was to keep it full. They treated me like I was the burden because I came with strings attached. I came with the need for validation. I came with the need to be seen. And now I came with a baby. My daughter was the final excuse they needed to shove me aside. She was the barrier between them and my bank account. And because of that, they resented her before she even woke up. I stood up, my boots off. I picked up the car seat. It was heavy, but it felt like the only thing in the world that truly belonged to me. I walked into the living room, stepping onto the rug I had bought them for their anniversary last year. I looked at the TV screen my dad was watching. It was a 65-inch flat screen. I bought it for Father's Day. I was surrounded by my own generosity, and yet I was completely alone. The history of my financial abuse was written on every surface of this home. It was in the curtains. It was in the vase on the mantel. It was in the sweater my sister was wearing. I had built this stage for them. And now they wouldn't even let me have a speaking part in the play. I took a deep breath. The years of silence, of just signing the checks and hoping for love, were ending. I could feel it. The bill was finally coming due, but not in the way they expected. I wasn't going to pay anymore. And the moment I stopped paying, I knew exactly what would happen. The facade would crumble. The family would dissolve. Because without my money, there was nothing holding us together. There was no glue, there was no love, there was just a transaction that had finally run its course. I looked down at Lily. She stirred again. She was about to wake up into a room full of people who wished she didn't exist because she cost too much. "I've got you," I whispered to her. "I'm not going to let them use you like they used me." I walked further into the room, waiting for the fight that I knew was coming. I was done being the bank. Today, I was just going to be a mother, and that was going to be a problem for everyone in this house. I walked fully into the living room. The air was warm, heated by the furnace I knew was on its last legs, but the atmosphere was freezing. I set the heavy car seat down on the rug carefully, trying not to jar it. Lily stirred. She let out a small, soft noise, a little coo that usually made strangers smile in the grocery store. It was a happy sound. She was waking up. "Is that thing going to cry?" Jenny asked. She didn't look up from her phone. She didn't turn her head. Her voice was flat, bored, and irritated. I froze. I stared at the side of her face. "Her name is Lily," I said. My voice was quiet, but it had a hard edge to it. "And she's not a thing." "Whatever," Jenny sighed, finally glancing up with a roll of her eyes. "I have a headache. I was up late last night with friends. If she starts screaming, I'm going to my room. I can't deal with noise right now." My mother walked back in from the kitchen. She was wiping her hands on a pristine white dish towel. She looked down at the car seat on the floor. She didn't bend down. She didn't smile. She didn't peek inside the canopy to see the face of her first and only grandchild. She looked at the carrier the way someone looks at a muddy pair of boots left in the wrong place. "You can't leave that there," Mom said. "Someone will trip. It's in the way." "I just got here, Mom," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I haven't even taken my coat off yet. Can I just settle in?" "Well, hurry up," she said, turning her attention to a speck of dust on the coffee table. "And don't put her on the white sofa. She spits up, doesn't she? Babies always spit up. I don't want stains on the fabric. That sofa cost a fortune." I bit the inside of my cheek. I wanted to scream, "I paid for that sofa, Mom. I sent you the money for it 3 years ago." But I didn't. I just felt a lump form in my throat. It was hard and painful, like swallowing a stone. I bent down and unbuckled Lily. I lifted her out of the seat. She was warm and soft, smelling like baby lotion and sleep. She rubbed her eyes with her tiny fists and looked around the strange room. She blinked, her big blue eyes taking in the lights of the Christmas tree. She saw my dad sitting in his recliner. She smiled. It was a big, gummy, joyful smile. She waved a little chubby hand at him. Dad looked at her. He frowned. He didn't smile back. He didn't wave. He picked up the remote control and pressed the volume button. The sound of the football game got louder, filling the room with the noise of cheering crowds and commentators, drowning out the soft coos Lily was making. "Dad," I said, stepping closer. "This is Lily. She's waving at you. She recognizes you from the video calls." "I see her, Scarlett," he grunted, his eyes glued to the screen. "I'm watching the game. It's the 4th quarter. Do you have to stand right in front of the TV?" I stepped aside, clutching Lily tighter against my chest. She buried her face in my shoulder, sensing the rejection. Babies always know. She could feel the tension radiating off me, and she could feel the coldness coming from them. She started to whimper. "Great," Jenny said, throwing her hands up in the air. "Here we go, the siren starts." "She's not a siren," I snapped. "She's just hungry. It was a 6-hour drive. Does anyone want to hold her while I get her bottle ready? I just need to use the bathroom and wash my hands." I looked at the three of them. I offered them the most precious thing in my life. Jenny aggressively tapped on her screen, ignoring me completely. Dad stared at the football players running across the green field. Mom sighed loudly, dramatically. She adjusted her silk blouse. "I have food on the stove, Scarlett. I have to baste the roast. I can't have baby drool on this top, it's dry clean only." Not one of them wanted to hold her. I stood there for a moment, stunned. In the movies, or in my friends' families, a new baby is the center of the universe. When my friend Sarah went home for Christmas, her parents fought over who got to hold the baby first. Here, my baby was treated like a contagious disease. I felt tears prick my eyes, hot and stinging, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I walked to the kitchen with Lily on my hip. The kitchen was warm. It smelled delicious: roast beef, caramelized onions, cinnamon, and pine. It smelled like the Christmases of my childhood, but the feeling was wrong. It felt like a waiting room at a dentist's office, sterile, impersonal, and filled with dread. I warmed a bottle under the hot tap water. I stood alone by the sink. I whispered to Lily, "It's okay, Mommy's here. I love you." I walked back out to the dining room. I didn't go back to the living room where they were. I sat on a hard wooden chair in the corner, away from the white sofa, away from the TV. I fed Lily her bottle. I watched my family through the archway. They were talking to each other now. The tension had vanished as soon as I left the room. Jenny was showing Mom a video on her phone, and they were both laughing. It was a genuine, easy laugh. Dad was cheering for a touchdown, shouting at the screen. They were a unit, a closed circle. They were comfortable with each other. I was the observer. I was the outsider looking in through a glass wall. My eyes drifted to the pile of gifts I had brought. I had spent hours wrapping them in expensive paper with real ribbons. I had bought Jenny a designer handbag she had linked on her Instagram. It cost $500. I had bought Dad a new smartwatch because he complained his old one was slow. I had bought Mom a set of luxury skincare creams she loved. The bags sat by the door, untouched. They hadn't even asked what I brought. They hadn't even looked at them. "So," Mom called out from the living room. She didn't turn her head. She just shouted over the back of the sofa. "Did you get that end-of-year bonus you were talking about?" That was the first question. Not "how was the drive?" Not "how are you feeling?" Not "is the baby sleeping through the night?" "Yes," I said, my voice dull. "I got it." "Good," she said. "The furnace has been making a terrible clanking noise all week. We might need a new one next month. Your father had a guy look at it. He said it's going to be about $4,000 to replace the whole unit." She didn't ask if I could help. She didn't ask if I had the money. She just stated the price. She assumed the check was already written. She assumed that my bonus was actually their bonus. I looked down at Lily. She was drinking her milk, her eyes wide and trusting, looking up at me. She played with a button on my shirt. She was innocent. She didn't know that the people in this room considered her a financial inconvenience. She didn't know that her grandmother was more worried about a silk blouse than about bonding with her. I realized then that they didn't hate the baby. That would almost be better because hate is an emotion. This was worse. This was indifference. They didn't care about her. She was competition. She was a new expense. She was a tiny human being that took my attention and my money away from them. They didn't dismiss her because she was loud or messy. They dismissed her because she was mine. And in their minds, anything that was mine was actually theirs to use or discard as they saw fit. And since they couldn't use the baby, they wanted to discard her. I burped Lily and wiped her mouth. I held her close, rocking her gently in the hard chair. "Scarlett, are you just going to sit in the dark?" Jenny called out. "It's weird, come watch the halftime show." "I'm feeding the baby," I said. "Well, hurry up," Jenny said. "Mom's serving dinner soon and I'm starving." I looked at the designer bag I had bought for Jenny. I thought about the rent I paid for this house. I thought about the furnace they wanted me to buy. I looked at my daughter's face. A cold resolve started to settle in my stomach. It replaced the sadness. It replaced the longing for their approval. It was a hard, heavy feeling. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a mother, and a mother protects her child. I stood up. I'm coming, I said, but I wasn't coming back to them, not really. I was just walking into the room to say goodbye, even if they didn't know it yet. I held Lily like a shield. They wouldn't break her. I wouldn't let them. Dinner was ready an hour later. The dining room table was set perfectly. My mother always set a beautiful table, crystal glasses, silver cutlery, linen napkins. It was a show. It was all about appearance. I had to bring in the portable high chair I had packed in the trunk. My parents hadn't bought one. I had told them months ago I was coming with a 9-month-old. I had sent links to cheap ones on Amazon. They had ignored them. So I dragged the plastic chair in and set it up at the corner of the table. Lily sat in the high chair, chewing on a rubber teething toy. She was being good. She was quiet, just watching the candlelight flicker. Can you move her? Jenny asked, sitting down and unfolding her napkin. She's staring at me, it's creepy. She's a baby, Jenny, I said, my voice tight. She's just looking around. She's curious. Well, turn her chair around, Jenny snapped. I'm trying to eat. I don't want to be watched by a baby while I chew. It's annoying. My mother walked in with a platter of roast beef. She placed it in the center of the table. She served Dad first, piling meat onto his plate. Then she served Jenny. She put the bowl of mashed potatoes down. She didn't serve me. I reached for the spoon to serve myself. So, about the furnace, Dad said, cutting into his meat. He didn't look at me. I told the guy to come on Tuesday. You can just Venmo me the money tomorrow morning. Make it $4,500, just in case there are extra parts or labor costs. I don't want to run short. I froze. My hand hovered over the mashed potatoes. The steam rose up, smelling of butter. And, Mom added, passing the gravy boat to Jenny, Jenny needs a deposit for her new apartment. She's thinking of moving out of here finally. Just a small studio downtown. We told her you'd help with the first and last month's rent. It's about $3,000 total. It's a safe building, so it's a bit more expensive. I put the serving spoon down. It made a clinking sound against the china. I looked at them. They were eating calmly. They were chewing their roast beef. They were spending $7,500 of my money between bites of food. They hadn't even asked if I could afford it. They hadn't asked if I had expenses for the baby. They hadn't asked if I had savings left. They just ordered from the menu of my bank account. No, I said. The word was quiet, but it hung in the air like a gunshot. The chewing stopped. The forks froze midway to mouths. Dad looked up, his eyebrows drawing together. What did you say? I said no, I repeated. My voice was low, but it didn't shake. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my hands were steady on the table. I'm not paying for the furnace. And I'm not paying for Jenny's apartment. Jenny dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against her plate. Excuse me, you promised you'd help me get settled. Mom said you would. I never promised that, I said, looking her in the eye. You assumed. Mom and Dad assumed. No one asked me. Scarlett, don't be selfish, Mom said, her voice taking on that scolding tone she used when I was a child and refused to share a toy. Family helps family. You have that good job in the city. You have plenty. Your sister needs a start. She's trying to be independent. I have a child, I said. I pointed to Lily in her high chair. I have a baby to support now. My money goes to her. I have a mortgage of my own. I have daycare costs. I have a future to build for her. I can't support 3 households anymore. Oh, don't use the kid as an excuse, Dad spat. He wiped his mouth with a napkin and threw it on the table. You're just being stingy. You come into this house, bringing that crying baby, disrupting our Christmas, making everything about you, and now you want to hold out on us. After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me, I asked. I felt a heat rising in my chest, a fire that had been smoldering for 20 years. I have paid your mortgage for 5 years, Dad. I paid for this food we are eating right now. I paid for the car sitting in the driveway. I paid for the roof over our heads. I have given you everything. That's your duty, Mom yelled, her face turning red. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. And you treated me like an ATM. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Lily startled and looked at me, her eyes wide. I walked in here today and not one of you, not one, asked how I was. You looked at my daughter like she was a mistake. You insulted her. You ignored me. And the first real sentence you spoke to me was asking for $4,000. You're hysterical, Jenny laughed. It was a cruel, cold laugh. She shook her head. God, you're so hormonal. Is this postpartum depression? Do you need meds? You sound crazy. Sit down, Scarlett, Dad commanded, pointing a finger at my chair. Stop making a scene. You're ruining dinner. No, I said. I'm done. I am finally, truly done. I looked at them, really looked at them. I didn't see my parents. I didn't see my sister. I saw strangers. I saw the greed in their eyes. I saw the entitlement. There was no love there. There was just a hunger for what I could give them. They loved my utility, not my humanity. If you don't want me here for me, then you don't get my money, I said, my voice clear and final. This is the last time. You will not receive another dollar from me, not for the furnace, not for the apartment, not for groceries. Figure it out yourselves. They laughed. They actually laughed at me. She'll transfer it tomorrow, Mom said to Dad, ignoring me standing there. She always feels guilty later. She's just tired. Just let her have her tantrum. I bet she sends 5,000 just to apologize, Jenny sneered, picking up her fork again. Something inside me clicked. It was the sound of a heavy chain finally breaking. It was the sound of the lock snapping open. They didn't believe me because I had never held my ground before. They thought they owned me. They thought I was weak because I was kind. I looked at Lily. She was watching me, quiet and alert. I knew in that moment that I had to protect her. I couldn't let her grow up watching her mother be treated like this. I couldn't let her think this was what love looked like. Watch me, I whispered. I turned away from the table. I didn't look back at their smug faces. I didn't wait for permission to leave. I walked toward the high chair. The era of Scarlett the bank was over. The era of Scarlett the mother had begun. I didn't finish dinner. I didn't clear my plate. I walked over to the high chair and unbuckled Lily. She looked at me, sensing the change in energy. I picked her up and walked straight to the hallway. Where are you going? Mom called out. Her voice wasn't worried. It was annoyed. We haven't had pie yet. I'm leaving, I said. I put Lily into her car seat on the floor. I zipped up her winter suit. I put on my coat. My hands were moving fast, efficient. You can't leave, Dad said from the dining room. It's snowing, don't be an idiot. I'd rather drive through a blizzard than spend another minute in this house, I said. I grabbed the car seat. I grabbed my bag. I left the gifts. I left the designer bag and the watch and the skincare. I didn't care about the money I had spent on them. It was a sunk cost, the price of my freedom. I opened the front door. The wind howled. Snow was coming down in thick sheets. Scarlett, Mom yelled, finally standing up and coming to the hallway. If you walk out that door, don't you dare come back crying when you need us. I turned around one last time. The cold air swirled around me. I won't need you, I said calmly. I never did, you needed me. I slammed the door. The walk to the car was brutal. The wind bit at my face. The snow crunched under my boots. I strapped Lily into the base in the back seat. I checked her buckles twice. I kissed her forehead. We're going home, baby girl, I whispered. We're going to our real home. I got into the driver's seat and locked the doors. I saw the curtain in the living room window move. They were watching, probably waiting for me to turn off the engine and come back inside, begging for forgiveness. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. I didn't look back. The drive was terrifying. The highway was a sheet of white. The windshield wipers worked furiously against the snow. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The car slipped once, sliding slightly on black ice, but I corrected it. I was hyper-focused. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I felt a strange, cold clarity. For years, I had been driving through a metaphorical storm with my family, blinded by guilt, sliding on their manipulation, trying to keep everyone safe while they laughed in the back seat. Now the storm was real outside the car, but inside I was in control. I drove for 6 hours. Lily slept for most of it. When I finally pulled into the parking lot of my apartment complex, the snow had stopped. The sky was clear and dark. It was 2 a.m. I carried Lily upstairs. My apartment was quiet. It smelled like lavender and peace. There was no roast beef. There was no shouting. There was no demand for money. I laid Lily in her bassinet. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the rocking chair next to her. I watched her chest rise and fall. I realized then that I had been an orphan for a long time. I just hadn't admitted it. My parents were alive, but I had no parents. I had dependents who looked like parents. I took out my phone. I had 12 missed calls from Mom, 5 texts from Jenny calling me a psycho, 2 voicemails from Dad telling me to grow up. I didn't listen to them. I didn't read them. I looked at my daughter. She was safe. I was safe. And for the first time in my life, my bank account was mine. My future was mine. I wasn't scared of being alone anymore. I was relieved. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. The silence was the best Christmas gift I had ever received. 2 days passed. The silence in my apartment was heavy, but it was peaceful. I spent the time just being a mother. I held Lily. I played on the floor with her. I didn't check my bank account. I didn't check my email. I tried to pretend that the world outside my front door didn't exist. But deep down, I felt a sick knot in my stomach. I knew them. I knew this wasn't over. They wouldn't just let me walk away. They wouldn't just let the bank close its doors without trying to pry them open again. On the morning of the third day, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was a confident, rhythmic rapping. I froze. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Lily was in her swing, watching the morning light hit the wall. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My heart sank. It was my mother and my father. And Jenny, they were all there, standing on my welcome mat, brushing snow off their coats. They didn't look angry, they looked pleasant. My mother was holding a Tupperware container. My father was holding a bottle of wine. Jenny was actually smiling. I debated not opening it. I could just pretend I wasn't home. But my car was in the lot. They knew I was here. And a part of me, the part that was still a little girl wanting her mommy, wanted to see what they would say. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, the drive away on Christmas had woken them up. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. "Surprise," Mom said, her voice bright and cheery. She pushed past me before I could invite her in. "It's freezing out there, Scarlett, let us in." They filed into my small apartment. The space suddenly felt crowded. They looked around, judging the furniture, judging the size of the TV. "What are you doing here?" I asked. I stayed by the door, my hand still on the knob. "We came to see you, silly," Jenny said. She took off her boots and kicked them into the corner. "We felt bad about Christmas. It got a little heated, didn't it?" "Heated?" I repeated. "You laughed at me. You told me I was unwanted." "Oh, stop it," Dad said. He walked over to the kitchen counter and set down the wine bottle. "We were all stressed. The holidays are stressful. You know how your mother gets. You know how I get." "We didn't mean it." He didn't say "I'm sorry." He said we didn't mean it. It wasn't an apology. It was an eraser. He was trying to erase the memory so we could go back to normal. "We brought leftovers," Mom said, holding up the Tupperware. "I made that potato salad you like, and we missed the baby." She walked over to the swing where Lily was sitting. "Hello there," she cooed. She didn't pick her up. She just waved a finger in Lily's face. "Did you miss Grandma?" Lily looked at her blankly. She didn't know this woman. I watched them. They were acting like nothing had happened. They were walking around my home, touching my things, making themselves comfortable. It was a performance. I could feel it. It was too rehearsed. "So," Jenny said, flopping onto my couch. "This place is cute. A little small, but cute. How much is rent here? Like $2,000. "Why does that matter?" I asked, walking into the living room. "Just curious," she said, shrugging. "I'm just comparing it to the places I'm looking at, you know, for my move." There it was. "The apartment." "I told you," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not paying for your apartment, Jenny." We know," Mom said quickly, waving her hand dismissively. "We're not here to talk about money. We're here to be a family. We want a fresh start. It's almost New Year's. Let's leave the drama in the past." "We were thinking," Dad said, leaning against the counter. "For New Year's Eve, we should all go out. A nice dinner. That steakhouse downtown." "My treat?" I looked at him. "Your treat?" "Well," he hesitated. "I mean, I'll pick the place. We can figure out the bill later, but we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate you, Scarlett. You work so hard." They were saying all the right things, but their eyes were cold. They were scanning the apartment, looking for signs of wealth. Mom was eyeing my new coffee maker. Jenny was looking at the laptop sitting on my desk. "We really do miss you," Mom said, her voice softening. She walked over and put a hand on my arm. It felt heavy. "You're our rock, Scarlett. We fall apart without you. You know that. We were just scared on Christmas. Scared of losing you." I felt a crack in my resolve. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that they valued me. I had spent my whole life waiting for them to say they needed me emotionally, not just financially. "You really mean that?" I asked. "Of course," Mom said. She squeezed my arm. "We love you, we're a family. Families fight, but they always come back together." "And look," Jenny added, pointing at Lily. "The baby is cute." I guess it was a weak effort, but it was an effort. "Okay," I said. I let out a breath I had been holding for 2 days. "Okay, you can stay for coffee." They smiled. It was a collective sigh of relief. But it wasn't the relief of a family reunited. It was the relief of a salesman who just closed a deal. We sat in the living room for an hour. We drank coffee. They talked about neighbors I didn't know. They talked about a TV show I didn't watch. They didn't ask about my job. They didn't ask about Lily's schedule. But they were there. And for a moment, I let myself pretend it was real. I let myself pretend that the snowy drive hadn't happened. I let myself pretend that I was just a daughter having coffee with her parents. But the air was thin. Beneath the chatter, I could feel the desperation. They were being too nice. Too careful. It was like they were walking on ice, trying not to crack it before they got to the other side. And the other side, I knew, was my bank account. The visit was winding down. Mom said they had to get back before the roads got icy again. "I just need to use your restroom," Mom said. She stood up and left her purse and her phone on the coffee table right in front of me. Dad was in the kitchen, looking in my fridge, probably checking what brand of milk I bought to see if I was spending money on premium items. Jenny was putting her coat on by the door. I was sitting on the couch, holding Lily. Suddenly, Mom's phone lit up on the table. It buzzed loudly against the wood. I wouldn't usually look. I respect privacy. But the phone was right there, face up. And the text message preview was large. It was from Jenny. I looked at Jenny by the door. She was typing on her phone, a smirk on her face. She didn't know I was looking at Mom's screen. I read the message. The words burned into my retinas. "Jenny, see, told you she'd fold, she always does. Now ask about the furnace money before we leave." My chest went cold. Instantly, painfully cold. The world seemed to stop spinning. The sound of Dad rummaging in the fridge faded away. The sound of traffic outside disappeared. All I could see were those words. She always does. Ask about the furnace money. It was a game, a strategy. The apology was a tactic. The "we missed you" was a lie. The fresh start was a trap. They hadn't driven 2 hours to see me. They hadn't come to see their granddaughter. They had come because they needed $4,000 for a furnace, and they knew that if they played nice for an hour, weak Scarlett would give in. They thought I was stupid. They thought I was desperate for their love. And the saddest part was they were right. I had been desperate. I had almost folded. But seeing it written down, seeing the calculation, the cruelty, the absolute lack of respect, snapped something inside me back into place. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. Mom came back from the bathroom. She looked refreshed. She picked up her phone without looking at the screen and put it in her purse. "Well," she said, clapping her hands together. "This was lovely. It feels so good to have things back to normal." She looked at me expectantly. This was the moment. This was the moment I was supposed to offer the check. This was the moment I was supposed to say, "Don't worry about the furnace, Dad. I'll take care of it." I looked at her. I looked at Dad, who had walked back in. I looked at Jenny. "Yes," I said. My voice was very quiet. It was revealing. "What?" Mom asked. "It was good to see you," I said. "Drive safe." Mom blinked. She looked confused. She was waiting for the offer. The silence stretched out. It became awkward. "So," Dad said, clearing his throat, "about that furnace. The guy is coming tomorrow. I'm a little short this month until the business picks up in the spring." "That sounds stressful," I said. I didn't reach for my checkbook. I didn't pick up my phone to Venmo. "It is," Mom said, her smile faltering. "We were hoping. Since you got that bonus." "I spent it," I lied. "I hadn't spent a dime. Babies are expensive, and I decided to put the rest in a locked savings account for her college. I can't touch it." The room went dead silent. The warmth evaporated. "You spent it?" Jenny asked, her voice sharp. "All of it. Every penny," I said. The look on their faces changed instantly. The masks fell off. The loving family vanished. In their place were 3 angry, disappointed strangers. "Well," Mom said, her voice icy, "that was irresponsible. You should have consulted us." "Why?" I asked. "It's my money." "We're leaving," Dad said abruptly. He buttoned his coat. He didn't say goodbye to Lily. He didn't look at me. He just walked to the door. Mom followed him. She looked at me with pure disgust. "You've changed, Scarlett, and not for the better. You've become hard." "I've become smart," I said. They walked out the door. Jenny was the last one. She glared at me. "Thanks for nothing," she muttered. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I leaned my forehead against the cold wood. They hadn't returned for love. They returned for access. They wanted the PIN code to my life, not a place in it. I felt tears running down my cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. The doubt was gone. I knew the truth now. I had seen it in black and white on a glowing screen. I was free. An hour later, my phone rang. I saw the name on the screen, Aunt Linda. Linda was my dad's younger sister. She was the black sheep. She lived 3 states away, didn't have much money, and refused to play my parents' games. We rarely talked, mostly because my parents always spoke badly of her. They called her bitter and trouble. I picked up. Hello, Scarlett, her voice was rough, full of smoke and age. It's Linda. Hi, Aunt Linda, I said. I was tired, I didn't want to talk to anyone related to them. I'm going to keep this short, she said. I know you were at the house on Christmas and I know you left. Yeah, I said, I left. Good for you, she said. I paused. What? I said, good for you, it's about damn time. I walked over to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the snow in the parking lot. I called the house today, Linda continued, to wish them a happy new year. They didn't know I was on speakerphone initially. They were in the car, driving back from your place. My stomach tightened. What did they say? You don't want to know, she said. I do, I said. I really do, I need to know. Linda sighed. Your mother was laughing, she said. She always crawls back, it's pathetic. She was mocking how you looked when they showed up. She said you looked like a scared little girl. I closed my eyes. Your father said, Linda paused. He said, she thinks we need her but she needs us more. We've got her wrapped around our finger. She'll pay for the furnace next week. She just needs to be guilt-tripped a little harder. And Jenny? I asked, though I already knew. Jenny said you were stingy. She said she deserves your money more than that baby does because she has actual potential, and the baby is just a lump. Hearing it out loud, in Aunt Linda's blunt voice, broke something inside me. But it wasn't a break that caused collapse. It was the breaking of a fever. They think I'm a joke, I whispered. They think you're a resource, honey, Linda said. They don't respect you, they never have, they respect your checkbook. As long as you keep opening it, they'll keep laughing at you behind your back. I saw a text, I told her. Jenny texted Mom while they were here, it said I would fold. See, Linda said, it's a game to them. Manipulation is their sport, and you've been the ball for 10 years. I'm done, Linda, I said. I told them no. Saying no is the easy part, Linda warned. Sticking to it is hard. They will come for you, they will cry, they will threaten. They will tell the whole family you're abandoning them. They will try to destroy your reputation. Let them, I said. The anger in my chest was gone, replaced by a cold, hard steel. Let them talk. Good girl, Linda said. Her voice was softer now. You have a daughter now, Scarlett. You break the cycle for her. Don't let her grow up thinking love comes with a price tag. Don't let her see her mother be a doormat. I won't, I promised. I'm proud of you, Linda said. I started to cry. My parents hadn't told me they were proud of me in years, not when I got promoted, not when I bought my apartment, not when I gave birth. Thank you, Linda, I choked out. You're not alone, she said. Remember that, you have family. Real family doesn't ask for a deposit. We hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment. The truth was out. There were no more shadows. No more maybe they love me in their own way. They didn't love me, they used me, and they laughed about it. I looked at Lily. She was asleep in her swing. She was peaceful. I realized that by cutting them off, I wasn't losing a family. I was losing a parasite. I was losing a tumor that had been draining the life out of me for a decade. It hurt. It hurt like surgery. But I knew that once the wound healed, I would be healthier than I had ever been. I didn't wait until the next morning. I sat down at my laptop right then. It was 5 p.m. I opened my banking portal. I went to the Scheduled Transfers tab. There it was. Mom and Dad Mortgage Assistance. $1,200/month. Cancel. Jenny Car Insurance. $180/month. Cancel. Family Phone Plan 5 lines. $350/month. Cancel. I went to the utility websites. I had the logins saved because I paid the bills. Electric company, remove autopay. Gas company, remove payment method. Water company, remove payment method. I went to the streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Spotify, they were all on my card. Sign out of all devices. Change password, cancel subscription. My fingers flew across the keyboard. It felt like I was defusing a bomb. With every click, I felt lighter. I opened my email. I drafted a generic email to the private school where Jenny was taking extended learning art classes. Subject, tuition payment. Body, please be advised that I will no longer be responsible for the tuition payments for Jennifer Smith. Please direct all future billing to the student. Send. I canceled the credit card that I had given Dad for emergencies, the one he used for gas and client dinners. I reported it lost and asked for a new number, one he wouldn't have. It took me 40 minutes to dismantle 10 years of financial support. Then, I picked up my phone. I didn't send a big dramatic text. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of a fight. I went to my contacts. Mom, block caller. Dad, block caller, Jenny, block caller. I blocked them on Facebook. I blocked them on Instagram. I blocked their email addresses. I built a wall. A digital, financial, emotional wall. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 2 days later, the first domino fell. I got a notification from Netflix on my own phone. Login attempted from unknown device. They were trying to watch TV. They were realizing the password didn't work. Then, the credit card. I saw a declined transaction alert on my banking app. $85 the steakhouse. Dad was trying to buy lunch. It declined. I imagined the moment. The waiter coming back to the table. I'm sorry, sir, the card didn't go through. The embarrassment. The panic. Then, the voicemails started appearing in my blocked messages folder. My phone didn't ring, but the carrier still stored them. I listened to one just to be sure. It was Mom. Her voice was high and frantic. Scarlett, the electric company sent a disconnect notice. They said the autopay was canceled. What is going on? Call me back immediately. This isn't funny. Another one from Jenny. My Spotify stopped working, and the school called me saying my tuition is overdue. You need to fix this now. I can't go to class. You're ruining my life. Another from Dad. Scarlett. Pick up the phone. You're being childish. You can't just cut us off. We have agreements. I'll sue you. I swear to God I'll sue you. He threatened to sue his own daughter for stopping the charity. I didn't reply. I felt a ghost of guilt, a whisper of maybe I'm being too harsh. But then I remembered the text. She always folds. I remembered the laughter Aunt Linda heard. I deleted the voicemails. Suddenly, the silence wasn't empty. It was powerful. For the first time in my life, my paycheck hit my account and it stayed there. All of it. I paid my mortgage. I paid my daycare bill. I bought Lily a new winter coat. And I still had money left over. I looked at the balance. It was growing. It was security. It was freedom. The flying monkeys came next. My cousin called. My uncle called. Your mother is sick with worry, they said. How can you do this to your family? I told them the truth. Simply and directly. I have supported them for 10 years. I have a child now. I cannot afford to support 2 households. If they are in trouble, they are adults. They can get jobs. Most of them didn't understand. They called me cold. I blocked them too. I realized I was pruning a dead tree. I was cutting off the rot so the healthy parts could survive. The panic on their end grew. I heard through Aunt Linda that Dad had to sell his second car. I heard Jenny had to move back into the house because she couldn't get the apartment without my deposit. I heard Mom had to start buying generic brands. They were facing the consequences of their own lives for the first time. And I was facing mine, a life where I was the main character, not the supporting actress funding the production. 2 weeks later, it was mid-January. The snow was deep. I was sitting in my living room on a Saturday afternoon. Lily was practicing crawling. She was scooting backward on the carpet, laughing. There was a knock at the door. My stomach clenched. I thought it was them. I thought maybe they had driven down to scream at me, to bang on the door until I opened it. I walked to the peephole, ready to call the police. But it wasn't them. It was an older woman with wild gray hair and a thick parka. She was holding 2 large grocery bags and a casserole dish wrapped in a towel. It was Aunt Linda. I opened the door. Linda, hey kid, she said. She was out of breath. These stairs are no joke. Can I come in? I brought lasagna. I stepped back. Yes, come in. She walked in and set the bags on the kitchen counter. I was in the neighborhood, she lied. She lived 3 states away. Thought I'd check on you, brought some stuff, diapers, wipes, some of those expensive organic snacks you like. I looked at the bags. There was easily $200 worth of groceries. You didn't have to do this, I said. I know, she said. She took off her coat. That's why it's a gift. If you have to do it, it's a tax. If you want to do it, it's love. She walked over to Lily. She knelt down on the carpet. Her knees cracked, but she didn't care. Well, hello, beautiful, Linda said softly. Lily looked at her. She didn't cry. She crawled right over to Linda and grabbed her finger. Linda smiled and her eyes crinkled up. It was a real smile. She looks like you, Linda said, looking up at me. She has your eyes and your chin. She does. Yeah, strong chin. Stubborn, Linda winked. We ate the lasagna. It was homemade. It was hot and cheesy and tasted like comfort. We sat at my small table. Linda told me stories about my dad when he was young before he got greedy. She told me about her own life, her cats, her job at the library. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't ask about my salary. She didn't ask for a loan. She handed me an envelope before she left. What is this? I asked, pulling back. I don't need money, Linda. "Open it," she said. I opened it. It was a card. On the front, it had a picture of a bear and a cub. Inside, she had written, "Scarlett, you are a good mother. You are a good person. You are not alone anymore. We've got you. Love, Aunt Linda." There was no check inside, just the note. "I wanted to put money in," she laughed. "But I figured you'd be offended. So I bought a savings bond for Lily instead. It's in her name. She can cash it when she's 18. I hugged her. I hugged her so hard my ribs hurt. She smelled like peppermint and rain. She hugged me back, holding me up. "Thank you," I whispered. "You're welcome," she said. "Now lock the door behind me." She left. That night I put Lily to bed. I stood over her crib and watched her sleep. The apartment was quiet. But it wasn't the lonely silence I had felt on Christmas. It was a peaceful silence. My phone was quiet, no demands, no guilt trips. My bank account was safe. My daughter was loved. I realized that family isn't about blood. It isn't about who you owe. It's about who shows up with lasagna when it's snowing. It's about who holds your baby and sees a person, not a burden. I walked to my bedroom and climbed into bed. The sheets were cool. For the first time in years, my mind wasn't racing with calculations. I wasn't worrying about how to pay for a furnace I didn't own. I wasn't worrying about making people happy who refused to be happy. I closed my eyes. I was Scarlett, I was a mother, I was free. And for the first time in years, I slept without fear.